We're live.
It's absent. Brent Chesney. Paulette Guajardo. Gil Hernandez.
Here.
John Mattis is absent. Mike Pesley.
Here.
Everett Roy.
Here.
Connie Scott.
Here.
Mark Scott.
Here.
Carolyn Vaughn. Ms. Vaughn is here. I think she's just in the back. So,
Here.
all right, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. After roll call, we'll move on to public comment. Do I have anyone in the front that would like to make public comment at this time? Ms. Cheryl? Yeah, please go ahead.
Didn't know I was going to be first up. Get out of the way for y'all so we can clear this. Many of y'all, I'm Cheryl Segrist. Many of y'all heard me last week at council meeting. I'm here again. Our county officials weren't so didn't get to hear my little speech, so here I go again. But I'm Cheryl Segrist. I'm a mom of 2 boys. I also am a member of ISAC and a banker and a small business owner in town. And I'm here to bring to your attention about the resolutions that were recently submitted by PRAC and ISAC. The resolutions were to get a skate park built on the island as soon as possible. Over the past year, I'm speaking today on behalf of what we call the Stoked Brokers, and I know y'all hear me say that, but that was one of our father members of our little advocacy group that coined us that term. So, but April last year to the present, we formed our group in advocacy of a skate park on the island. We sent out a change.org survey to the community and got 970 responses wishing for a skate park on the island. And the reason for the need for us is the safety of the kids, plain and simple. We have a culture out there, a surf skate culture, and these kids bike and skate and scooter all over the island on the public streets, boat ramps, business infrastructure, and where a lot of the community loves the fact that we have an active group of youth out there. It can be dangerous and frustrating. So we need a spot on the island. And we are, the city heard our call throughout the year last year after public comments at PRAC and ISAC and City Council. And they slated us, kind of drew us in on the Commodore's Park map to be on a section of that, but not till phase 3. So there's no definite plan, funding, or any kind of assurance of that, and that could take many, many years. So we proposed that we advocated for doing this sooner, utilizing one of the existing parks out on the island, whether Billish, Aquarius, something like that, a park that has ample unused space. Currently, those parks have to be irrigated and maintained. Putting a skate park there would, take away from the budget needs to irrigate, number one, which, is a hot topic these days, as y'all know. But we have 400 kids at Seashore Charter School, and half of that's the middle school kids. We have playgrounds on parks. They're good for kids ages 8 and under, but there's nothing for that older demographic of youth to do out there except for surf when the surf's up. And so we're looking for a place that can be centrally located, easy access, that the kids can safely, play and do what they need to do out there. So how do we fund this park? Well, Westgooth Skate Park was built costing around $585,000 roughly. Our group has done a lot of research on different designs and such. We know it would be easy just to take a plan like Westgooth and put it on one of the existing parks. However, Westgooth is great. It is more of an experience skate park, street skate park for experienced skaters. There could be options to do something smaller with TIRZ 2 funds, Parks and Wildlife grants, and private donations from the efforts of the Stoke Brokers community trying to fundraise. So just wanted to put that top of mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Ms. Rebecca, do you have any other comments signed up?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we will move on to approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections from this board to the minutes from October 15, 2024?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. My motion carries. All right, next we'll move on to the financial report. Ms. Villasana, no? Mr. Villasana, I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Sergio Villasana, Director of Finance and Procurement here. Included in your agenda pack are the financial statements for tax reinvestment zone number 2. They're unaudited financials, so I do have a brief presentation here on the financial position. So jumping right into slide number 2, we did provide an updated presentation into the packet here to provide more detail on budgeted expenditures. And so jumping to the slide here, we do have amended budget with a beginning fund balance of $11,189,721. Our year-to-date actual is going to be that equivalent amount, as that's how we anticipate to finish fiscal year September 30th, 2024. Next, we have revenues of budgeted revenue of $6,403,488. Year-to-date actuals as of January 31st amount to $4,742,816. Next, we have our expenditures. Expenditures that are budgeted include Briscoe King Pavilion, Packery Channel Maintenance, transfer out to our capital improvement projects, and administrative services fees. Year-to-date year-to-date expenditures for those projects amount to $6,879,750, was essentially your transfer out to your capital improvement projects. And we do have $61,632 that have been expensed for administrative services. Based on budget, we anticipate a ending fund balance as of September 30th of $3,396,554. Year-to-date on actuals, you have $8,991,155. The difference between ending fund balance budget to actual has to do with expenditures that haven't been either encumbered or paid. Any questions on the financial position?
No questions?
No? Okay. Next slide, we have our 5-year forecast of funds available for commitments. This is a nice table that we put together, and we start with fiscal year 2025 with a beginning fund balance column. It's amounted to $11,189,721,000. We're forecasting revenues to end up roughly around $6,555,132. We do have current and future incentives estimated at $3,066,667. We have infrastructure improvements expected of $6,108,083. And then we have admin and other expenses of $200,000. This leaves an estimated fund balance, estimated balance available for commitments that year end of about $8.3 million. And so we next have these, the next fiscal years, and follow the same pattern. By the end of 2029, we're estimating the very last column, bottom cell, $1,696,665 available for commitments. And, I can answer any questions here on the 5-year forecast, if any.
I have Gil. Go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, why do you have a dip in revenue in 2028?
That dip is a result of the change in contribution from the county and from the city. So right now, the city's contributing 100% to the TIRZ fund. And 2028, that tax year, we're going to drop down to 75% of contributions, and the county will go from 75% to 70% of contributions into the TIRZ fund.
Okay, can you denote that on this, where you know where the percentage is at?
Yes, sir, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Because I know that drops down, it continues to drop down throughout the 20 years.
Mark Scott?
So, but it goes back up in 29?
Yes, sir. There's we anticipate some projects being completed for Whitecap and Lake Padre, which adds new value to the tax roll. And so even though the contributions from the TIRZ, from the entities from the county and city do drop, the taxable assessed value increased significantly with some projects that are completed, and so it comes back up.
Got it. Thanks.
Councilman Roy?
So I should know this, but when is it 2029? Is that the last year before we renew?
No, I believe it got extended to 2041.
Okay, we're way out there then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I'm trying to keep all these TIRZ straight.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in these TIRZ.
Yeah.
Sir.
Okay. Thank you. That's the only question I had.
Okay. Next slide, we have a listing of the commitments. And here, want to highlight, we do have 39 million committed to future improvements here. From these commitments, about 17.4 million is a reimbursement straight from the TIRZ, while about 22.2 million the developers have to add to our tax increment in order to get reimbursed. And so those would technically kind of be a wash. And if there are no questions on this, I can jump into the our last slide, which is what our balances in our capital improvement projects. Year to date, we have 36 million budgeted in capital improvement projects. Expenditures and amounts encumbered to date amount to $17,339,339. This leaves an available balance or pending to be spent down of 18.6 million from these projects. And that concludes my presentation, and I can take any additional questions.
Do we have any questions or comments on the TIRZ funding balance? No? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I have it on here. Are we going to do also the TIF balance? Is
Ma'am?
someone going to present the balance on the TIF funding? I have in our packet the financial statements.
I think that concluded the report. Is that correct, Mr. Villasana?
Yes, typically we just go over that presentation, but if we'd like, I can cover the financial statements. Something that's not on the presentation is the balance sheet, and if y'all would like to see the balance sheet, it should be in your packet.
We do have it in the packets. We have a lot of new folks on here, so I think that might be helpful information.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So in the packet, we have the unaudited financials for the TIRZ, and the very first statement here is your balance sheet. On the balance sheet, of course, is going to be your assets, and the TIRZ only has cash and cash equivalents of about 8.9 million. And so with no outstanding liabilities as far as payables, this leaves an ending fund balance, restricted fund balance of 8.9 million. And that pretty much is your balance sheet. You have cash, basically. The next page is is what's in our presentation. It is your statement of revenues and expenditures and changes to fund balance. And here we provide a comparison of original budget to final budget, and then a comparison to year-to-date actuals. So your final budget is what's included in that presentation as far as the amended budget. We roll it up. What we'd like to do here is kind of provide more detail in the revenue side, and you can see your revenues mostly taxes from going into the TIRZ, but there is some interest income. So interest earnings, we budgeted about $329,000 year to date as of 2025. We have earned about $85,000. The interest rate on those, the average yield on that interest is about 4%. We do have funds and various investments that are approved by the Public Funds Investment Act. Next, we have the expenditures. There we have it rolled up to community development. I do anticipate breaking those down to more detail similar to the presentation, so you can see those details that are rolling into your income statement. Year-to-date actuals, we have no expenditures there, which we showed on the Briscoe and the operation maintenance of, the channel. All our expenses are the transfers out of the 6.9 million, which is under other financing uses and sources. That shows money coming out of that fund into the capital improvement fund. Overall, the net change in fund balance is going to be a decrease of 2.1 million, leaving you with about 8.9 million of fund balance, which should tie back to ties back to our presentation. But if there's any questions on the income, on the schedule of revenues and expenditures or the balance sheet, I'd be glad to answer those.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, board? No. All right. Thank you so much. Then we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the election of officers. I will open nominations for vice chair.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Brent Chesney for the co-chair position, please.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to nominate Brent Chesney as our vice chair. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Are there any other nominations, or?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were there any other nominations?
Thank you. Any other nominations, guys? Seeing none, is there any discussion? No. Okay, then all in favor
So motion to elect. So we're going to
Motion to elect, thank you.
Mr. Chesney.
Oh, so moved.
Thank you
I think
all.
we ought to do a roll call vote.
I'm sorry.
Thank you all for that. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, then it sounds like all in favor.
All in favor? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you all. Moving on to the next item, I have a motion to approve the TIRZ 2 calendar. Did everybody get to look at that? Yeah. I'll entertain a motion. Move.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the motion authorizing a development agreement between TIRZ 2 and the Nueces County for the Briscoe King Pavilion project, and I believe we have a presentation on this item.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Arturo Marquez, Director of Office of Economic Development. And right now, you guys are being given an updated copy of this presentation, which we'll go over right now. I'm just going to give you guys a quick recap of what has happened over the past couple of years and what has led us to this, and just an update on the agreement that we're considering today. So the Briscoe King is essentially, the scope of it is to do renovations to the existing facility, structural repairs, drainage improvements, parking lot improvements, and interior enhancements. It is also an expansion to construct a new facility, providing additional space for community needs. It should enhance event space for community gatherings, weddings, and special occasions, and it does include a centralized office and storage space. The city will also have access to the facility for public events, of course, as scheduling permits. Here on the slides, you will also see a few pictures of the renderings provided by the county of some of these improvements and what they will entail. Again, just some schematic drawings on here. And then just a quick recap of, the events that have occurred that has led us here. And back in July of 2022, the TIRZ board did approve an initial $2 million for improvements. This was later not amended, but rather there was an additional item back in 2023 for an additional $2 million, which was also approved, also within the fiscal year budget of 2024. And then last year, in October 15th, there was an additional request for 1.9 million, which was also approved, totaling the whole project at 5.9 million. Nueces County has updated the cost estimates and confirms that the total project cost as of the last meeting was 5.9. And the last slide there, we can kind of take it with a grain of salt, but in the last presentation, we did estimate about a 12 to 14 month time frame for the construction of the project. Okay. With that one, like I said, it's just a quick recap of what has happened, what has led us here. So before you, we also have a copy of the latest agreement between the TIRZ board and the Nueces County, which essentially, again, just kind of stipulates the payment of the 5.9 for the construction of this project. So I'd like to open it up for any questions that you guys may have.
Board, do we have any questions or comments on the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Roland? Okay, I have Mr. Chesney first.
I'll let them answer. I was just going to.
First, okay. Roland, go ahead.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, it's up to her.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you walk up. If you'll give us just a moment, we're going to take questions from the board, and then I'll move to.
Okay, I just wanted to correct one thing he said.
I wouldn't mind hearing from you.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, thank you.
He mentioned the parking lot. For y'all who were here back in October with these schematic designs, I made it very clear that this money is going towards the kind of the new Briscoe King Pavilion and some modifications to the old. This does not include anything for redoing.
What's on the packet and this that you gave us?
Right. So in the package that was released on Friday, there's a couple of changes.
No, not released on Friday. I mean, I check online. So as long if what's online is accurate.
Yes, it should be. The latest should be.
So it matches. Is that what you're saying? It matches?
There have been some last-minute changes to the agreement. One is the drawing of the funds and the issuance of the funds, which will be within 14 days immediately upon approval of the TIRZ board of this agreement and signatures. So those will be the drawing of the funds, and the timeline for that will be the 14 days once all signatures and approval have been accomplished. And secondly, there's been another addition in terms of both the county and the city working together towards using this facility for emergency purposes. And other events the city may request to use the facility as long as it's not already booked by county customers. So those additions have been added as well to the contract.
Okay, and this is a great project, so I think I want, obviously I usually come right out of the chute and say something move to approve, but I guess one thing, Peter, and I guess county staff, is that the last time we did a project together was, and it was much smaller in scope, was West Haven Park. And we all should have done a better job coordinating, you know, what is it? Because this is one that's going to be let by the county, correct? So it's going to be let and procured by the county. And we had a lot of challenges with regard to permitting. And I think if we'd have been much more engaged, you know, we're partners together, you know, I think the county at that time bore a lot of additional expense as a result of the lack of coordination. And I think that's the thing. There wasn't clarity with regard to what permitting, what development services required. So I just want to encourage that, you know, that we make sure that this falls within the 5.9 million. So what happens? I was looking through here. So what happens if it's under or over budget?
Scott Cross, yes, thank you.
In other words, let's say, for example, it exceeds 5.9 million, or it's a savings of 5.9.
Hello,
I mean, sure.
Scott Cross, Coastal Parks Director again. We would value engineer it. So Emily Rosenpaul is the architect on this project. And so she estimates 6 months for design work, and then we're allotting 2 months for developmental services review of those specs. So we're going to address that, you know, right from the get-go. And then we'll come back, and then once we go through our procurement process, I was told by Heather that we could use our own county procurement process. It's much like the cities.
Oh, yeah.
And so once we do that, just like Bob Hall Pier, we value an engineer to $800,000 out of that project. And so, 1.4, okay. Anyhow, so, I mean, we can go in and we can value engineer with a contractor once we get to that point to say, okay, what can you recommend here that we can still accomplish the same design spec by using an alternative means or methods? Yeah. So, and it works very good.
I have no doubt. All I'm saying is that I know we had some challenges, and I just want to ensure that we're coordinating together. And I think that at that time we had both parties done a little bit more due diligence.
Oh, I wasn't around then.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that we're uber conscious about it.
Well, I mean, these construction price indexes aren't holding. Chances are we're going to be value engineering or high. It's just the way it is out there right now.
Okay, I have nothing else at this time.
And I just would like to add, in terms of the agreement before you, if the project does come underfunded, which, you know, doesn't seem to happen these days, but there are provisions in the agreement that the county shall immediately repay all unexpended funds. So that provision is there.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much.
I have Board Member Chesney next. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Really, my comments were just to thank Ms. Bazan and Mr. Zoni for really helping us get this over the finish line. We had some discussions and some debate over how to make it work, and they were very instrumental in helping us get this done. So I appreciate both of y'all, your involvement in this, and just wanted to thank the TIRZ Board in general for supporting this project. It's very much appreciated. As Mr. Baresh said, it's a big project for the island, as everyone knows. There's very little public space on the island, so I think this is going to fill a big need that is out there right now. We're certainly happy to be partnering with the city in the use on this. The point of it, just to make sure everybody is aware, is that anytime the city needs it for whatever the city's going to use it for, classes or public, you know, whatever, as long as it's not booked by paying customers, if you will. That's part of what this agreement says, because, you know, it's city money too, and we realize that, and we want to be a good partner with the city on this. I do also appreciate your comments, Roland, on the permitting. I was not involved directly because that was Commissioner Gonzalez's project, but I do now remember that we did have some issues there. So certainly we do want to have some conversations on the permitting and how that's going to work, because that has sometimes been a little bit of a glitch, and so hopefully the city development services will know that this is a city-county project, and that would be taken into consideration as we're moving forward. So, but again, my comments were just to thank you for this project. It's a huge project for the island. It's a huge project for the county, and we're looking forward to it. And we appreciate the push, because I was really pushing on this to get it here today, because we've already lost some time, and every time we sit and go farther, it costs more. As we know, construction costs don't go down, and so we really needed to get this going. So I appreciate everybody's efforts in helping us do that. So thank you all very much.
Board Member Roy.
Yeah, I echo the same thing. I think it's a great project. You know, when I first saw the project, the nice thing about it is that the people out there, when they see this building become refurbished and everything, they don't look at it as a county building or a city building. They just look at it as as an asset in their area that's going to be very nice. I know that I had talked a little bit about the parking lot before, and so I just want to make sure that we keep that in mind, because with this new building, I do think at some point in time, you know, that parking lot has the ability to be refurbished, and so I just want us, both the city and the county, to keep that in mind and look at a roadmap in terms of what we can do to try and make that happen. I think. And again, I try to keep all my TIRZ, but we're getting ready to have a reduction overall as far as the percentage of participation. When is that going to take place?
Right, as Sergio mentioned. Yeah, I'm sorry? Right. Yeah, as Sergio mentioned earlier, the reduction on this particular TIRZ, it'll take place in 2028.
20 what?
2028.
2028.
Yeah, so we do have a few more years.
So hopefully we can definitely tackle that parking lot project before then. But just keep it in the back of the mind, and from time to time as we meet, if we can get an update on where we're at with that, that'd be awesome.
Board Member Chesney.
I apologize. Let me go back as well. I did also want to thank the board for allowing me to serve as vice chair. It's much appreciated, and really I would be remiss if I didn't also go back and mention the initial conversations that we had on this, and the mayor was very involved in that, as well as former Councilman Smith, who really played a big role in helping this go forward. So I appreciate everybody's participation. It's been great, but to not acknowledge that as well would be remiss on my part. So I want to make sure and say that, because we talked about this for many months and had lots of conversation on how to go about it. And it did start at one price and go to another. So, and you're right, Councilman Roy, it's definitely, the parking lot's going to be an issue at some point. But we were, as we said at the last meeting, we were trying to be conscious of the amount of money in the fund currently and how things were going and so forth. And we certainly don't want to take advantage of anything that the TIRZ has done, but there will be obviously some probably need to come back and look at that, as well as we've been very transparent about. We just weren't prepared to do it at the time that we did it and haven't drawn it all up and costed it all out. Until we do that, we don't think it's appropriate to bring that back. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Board Member Chesney. Any other discussion or questions on this item? You have one? Okay. Board Member Vaughn.
Okay. Don't beat me up. I'm just asking questions here. First off, I want to know why it takes 14 days to get the money. The other thing is, the county, y'all are the project manager. Is Scott going to oversee this? He is absolutely great, guys, to oversee it, absolutely. So if that's the case, why don't they just handle the money instead of us saying, okay, we're going to give you in 14 days, we're going to give you a payment? Wouldn't it be quicker and more efficient for them just to handle it? I mean, they're partners with us, and they contribute to it.
Yeah, they will, Councilwoman. What the 14 days means is that by the time, we have within 14 days, once the contract's executed, to send the money to the county. That's what we're going to do. We're going to send the entire nearly $6 million to the county.
You're going to send it all over?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I didn't get that. That's why I was asking, because it just didn't make sense.
Right, yeah. There was some thought last week of disbursements, but the commissioner and I spoke yesterday. We're going to send the entire $6 million to the county, who will manage it from that point forward.
That's going to help you guys.
It will. Yeah. We'll be involved, as Councilman Barrera said. It's good alert for us, which is that we'll make sure Development Services is working well with Scott Cross and in the county. But we won't be doing any of the construction oversight, design oversight. But from a development services standpoint, we'll assist to make sure things progress.
Well, it is in good hands.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Is that, okay. I'll move to Board Member Guajardo.
Thank you. So just because we're going to go that route, which is I'm all for, how often are we going to get updates, or how are we going to keep track together of what's going on and how things are going?
How would you prefer that? I mean, I can work with you any way you need me to, whether it's coming to a TIRZ meeting and give you an update. Typically, we work at, okay, I've not seen the contract. This is all new to me. I've never.
Yeah. No. And this is something that I think needs to be known here.
We typically do 30, 60, and 90% reviews.
Okay.
When we go through the planning process. And I've already gotten an email from Michael, in Development Services.
Yeah.
So we're on top of it. And that way you catch stuff before you get too far down the line, because you got to have the engineer or the architect go back and fix something that costs money.
Right.
So I could do 30, 60, and 90% reviews.
I'm going to yield to our city manager. What would you suggest?
Yeah, that's
and
fine.
Really, you could send us a memo saying here's where we are, and
Yeah.
But what would you say?
Yeah, and we don't need to do it every board meeting, but we'll work with Scott Cross and get updates to the board, and then maybe a quarterly update on our TIRZ meetings.
Who would I go through, Heather?
Yeah, we can work with Heather, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, we'll get periodic updates. We don't want to commit to quarterly necessarily, but there'll be periodic updates, a few through the year, to the board.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions on this item?
I move for approval.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Beginning.
Any opposed, say nay. Oh, I have one more comment. Board Member Chesney, go ahead. No. You guys are trying to confuse me. Okay, then that, Rebecca, did we finish that one? We're good on that? Okay, thank you.
Yes,
So we'll
ma'am.
move on to presentation for the TIRZ Community Survey findings and staff recommendation. Is that, yes, thank you.
Hi, good morning. Arturo Marquez, Director of Office of Economic Development again. Just to give you guys a quick update, last year, towards the end of the year, we had suggested to the board that we were going to go out there and do a survey, just to get a glimpse of what the needs are for the community as far as the business sector. So we ended up doing a survey that was essentially out there for about 3 weeks, and we were able to capture 560 responses. What we want to do today is we want to go through those responses with you guys and suggest some potential projects that, again, would evolve. This is just the first introduction of it. This will still need to go back into detail and get some things ironed out. But essentially, as I mentioned, we did have a total of 560 responses, of which about 74% of them were from the island, meaning that they were either residents or business owners. So here's a breakdown, and there's a couple categories that I'll go through. But here's a breakdown of the key development priorities. With a 1/3 response, we did get that essentially people want to preserve the natural spaces, and then followed up by people wanting to prioritize the infrastructure improvements. And then subsequently, we have the less responses of 20% that want to support expanding retail, dining, and entertainment. 9% favor attracting more tourists, and 4.2% prioritize job creation and other opportunities. Now, out of the business needs and challenges, 32% responded that they want better access to business resources. 29.7% desire actually improved communication within the city, seeing what is available out there, what other events are occurring from the city and of that like. 20% support collaborative business spaces, and 17% support direct business development grants. Now, some of the challenges that we do encounter by the island is, of course, the high operating costs, the seasonal fluctuations, and the limited infrastructure available on the island. So these are just some of the items that we consider as we talk about these potential incentives. Now, in the category of community concerns about development, 39% of the respondents said that they are concerned about the increase in traffic. 30% say they're worried about the environmental impact. 17% fear changes to the island's community culture. And 12.9% listed various other concerns, which, of course, do include taxes and lack of planning for the community as a whole. Now, in the category, or actually in our analysis or interpretation, we do find that there is, of course, strong support for infrastructure improvements and the preservation of natural spaces. We, of course, even though it was at 20%, we do find that to be high on the response, and there is a desire for more retail, dining, and recreational opportunities. There's also a need for essential services like grocery stores and pharmacies available to the public out there. The challenges in the businesses, of course, as I mentioned before, is the high cost and the seasonable instability. And ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, is the concern about traffic, and the environmental impact of what that causes to the island. So with that, with these responses, one of the things that we are suggesting, as I mentioned here, this is merely a conversation starter. We would have to go back and fine tune and, of course, come up with a little bit more detail. But essentially what we want to propose is a request of $500,000 for a pilot project to be able to provide a 50% matching grant for qualifying businesses that would be able to generate a retail, dining, or entertainment and tourism opportunities out on the island. This, of course, would also assist anybody with their infrastructure, their mobility enhancements, their exterior improvements, and the lighting, security, and any signage that will be available. So what that means is that if a business comes to us with a need of, let's say, for expansion, or they want to improve their current facility, they would have the ability to get reimbursed 50%. That would include, again, anything that has to do with improvements, any infrastructure that they might need. Of that target these items, as I mentioned, retail, dining, and all that, by 50%. Okay. As I mentioned, this is merely just a conversation. If the board chooses to accept or move forward with this, we would have to get feedback from the board today and start fine-tuning some of these incentives and come back to you guys with a proposal of what that structured program would look like. If the board does choose to move forward, then we would have to, of course, amend the project and financing plan to be able to embed a project like this, a program like this, into the actual document so we can solidify its existence. With that, I open it up for any questions.
Board Member Roy, go ahead.
One of the questions I have, if in this proposal that you're looking at, $500,000,
yes, sir.
Would the city administer that? And the reason why I'm asking is, we just recently had conversation about.
I'm going to echo the same concerns that I echoed the first time. I'm going to echo the same concerns that I echoed the first time. I think this is a very slippery slope and dangerous path to go down. Public spaces and public things that this TIRZ board has done great in keeping with the mission of every project that's now on the books and have been committed to is public space and public improvements. And that's what we set this TIRZ up to do 20 years ago, and Mark and I were involved in that, and others to do it for the Feburary Channel, and now we've renewed it to move forward in a different direction. I think it is a very slippery slope, and I don't think we need to be pulling money out of, because there are millions of dollars of infrastructure needs that we haven't even touched on out there. Gil's had great comments before on the second causeway that we're going to need to fund. That's going to be $10, $12, $15 million. That's a necessity. That is a have to have on that island. And to take any money away from projects like that or infrastructure or public space, in my opinion, would not be a smart move, especially since we've already got funds in this city that are to be used for these things. And I think it's to the tune of millions of dollars that run through that type A or type B, and I'm sorry, I don't know what they're called anymore. I'm not been here in a while. B, C, starts with C. Thank you, Mayor. And I think this would be heading the wrong direction on what the TIRZ's intent is. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Hernandez.
Okay, I've always been very leery of incentivizing retail or food service, simply because it's, you're picking winners and losers. And it's not the right thing to do, especially when you have pre-existing restaurants out there and you have pre-existing retail, then they didn't get any assistance. Plus, it's not the same situation as you would have like in downtown where you're trying to revitalize an area. I don't think anything on the island has ever been considered dilapidated, at least not that I've seen. And so you're not trying to reinvest in something. So I would have to disagree with doing this as just on the face of it, that we want to make sure that we're doing those common areas, and that's what this TIRZ was set up for, mainly Packery Channel, but it is, for those common areas for everybody's usage. It'd be very hard pressed to pick winners and losers this way. We should do it for the infrastructure. Even when we did the water line for the grocery store out there, it was still infrastructure. It wasn't assisting them in any way. So I would be hesitant to go in any direction, in that kind of direction. So this should still be for infrastructure because that's what it was designed for. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Scott.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I agree with Mr. Chesney and Mr. Hernandez. I think it needs to be for public infrastructure. A lot of needs coming down the pipe. I wasn't here for the last meeting, certainly, but I think this strays from the intent of the TIRZ and the way it was set up. So I would agree that we should not pursue this initiative.
Thank you. Board Member Pusley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I agree. This is calling for us to deviate from the contractual setup of the TIRZ, and if we're going to do that, then the first thing we need to do is go back and visit the TIRZ contract and to decide as a board whether or not we want to change that. But the TIRZ is set up to do a specific thing and accomplish a specific set of goals, and to deviate from that requires just more than us talking about it or requesting money to do that. So we'd have to go back and look at this from point A to point Z. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Barrera.
Thank you. I'm not going to belabor it. I don't support it as well.
Thank you. Vaughn.
It amazes me when we set up these boards, these TIRZ, different things, and I've seen it on the type A and B. We come in here and we try and change for what we need, and we shouldn't be doing that. It was set up for a different thing, and it should be for everybody. It should benefit everybody, not just a few. So I'm totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Campos.
Actually, I think everybody's pretty much said the same thing, Arturo. I'm just curious how you came about. I mean, how did you come up with this $500,000 incentive? I mean, that obviously is not popular at all. And again, it veered from the actual TIRZ appropriateness.
Yeah, no, and it's a fair question, of course. So we did, again, at the end of last year, we did get a lot of inquiries from businesses and potential business developers in the area that were requesting to see if there were any incentives available within that area. We got so many enough, of course, that we thought that it would be worth discussing to see whether or not the board members of the board would consider something like this. So we definitely want to be able to communicate back to, the business owners and the potential developers that, of course, we want to make sure that we have some, incentive packages available citywide, but then we would have to seek other methods than the TIRZ.
Okay, so you've asked and so you've done your part.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they asked, and of course, we don't agree, so.
And that's totally.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Board Member Roy.
So I want to just add to my first comment. I was talking about just the administrative cost and the potential of trying to run something like this. But also I want to put my banker hat on for a moment.
Sure.
There's programs out there that SBA loans, all different types of avenues, community banks that provide resources for individuals that are startup companies and want to venture, or they want to take their company to another level. So there are avenues out there, and I do agree with the rest of the board members is that we have to be really careful in terms of when you take a look at the overall mission, because even when you look at your survey, the thing that I thought was kind of contradictory, and I don't want to go, you don't have to go back to it, but when it came to job creation, it was kind of low on the list. Because I think for the most part, the individuals that are involved out on the island, it's a pretty mature business environment. And so I think they're capable of navigating through their resources. They understand some of those resources that are there. I think we don't, at this point, we've done such a great job that we don't need to take our eye off the ball and go down another avenue. So I'm against it also.
Sure.
So thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Pusley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to go back to the beginning of this presentation. Yeah, I don't know whether, I'm always a little suspect of these kind of surveys, total responses of 560 people. Considering the population of the island, I'm not sure that's a fair measure of what we're looking at anyway. But with the key priorities here, 33.3% want to preserve natural spaces and 31.8% are more concerned about infrastructure improvements by the city. So you've got over 60% of the people who responded to this are not concerned about increasing retail or businesses. They're concerned about open spaces and infrastructure. So if this is a fair measure, we need to keep that in mind. So, but I don't know how this was conducted, but I'm always suspect of a survey that only captures a very small percentage of the people who live in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Pusley. Board Member Chesney.
Madam Chair, based on everyone weighing in, I would like to make a motion that we table this item indefinitely.
This is a presentation. I don't think we had an action item, but thank you for that. I do want to weigh in kind of my 2 cents. I would like to echo Board Member Pusley's concerns. I wasn't here when the survey was called. I wasn't here when it was designed. I do think that these types of initiatives, I would like, if we go that direction again, that we have some inclusion on what that looks like. 500, less than 600 participants, and only 3/4 of that being from the island. I would struggle saying that represents the actual opinions of that demographic. Secondly, we do have an entity that services the island and acts as an advisory board to council. And while our Island Strategic Action Committee is not the board that's responsible for issuing these fundings, they certainly are a voice that we would like to hear represent what are priorities for this. So I think our time is probably a little better spent channeling those interests and those concerns through the existing channels, much like Board Member Vaughn said, these were set up with very specific intentions, and this simply was not it. And if you look at the information that you do have, improved infrastructure, that's what a TIRZ is set to do. Desire for improved communication with the city. So I think our time and energy would be better spent communicating those avenues in a way that are more user-friendly. I hesitate to say that the results that you've brought before us indicate that whole island would like matching grants and subsidies for their businesses. I think they want efficient systems, and I think they would like the TIRZ to remain to fund what the TIRZ was set up for. So thank you for your presentation. Any other comments or questions? Oh, Board Member Guajardo.
Yeah, just a quick comment. So for clarity, this is just, the survey was just for the island?
Correct, yes.
It was?
Yeah, it was very specific to, geographically speaking.
Right, okay, that's what I thought.
But 75% is from the island.
Is what?
It says majority of participants are residents of North Padre Island, 74.3%. So that means 25% plus was not.
Correct.
So then it wasn't just the island?
No, the questions were geared towards the island itself, about the infrastructure.
No, but the people who took this survey, was it just the island?
No. So there's about a 25% of people that responded that are within city, but not from the island itself.
And why?
So the method that we distributed the survey was open for everybody. We just did have some questions on there, whether you own the business on the island or whether you resided on the island too. So we did give options to other people, especially visitors. We did want to capture their, of course, their response.
This includes visitors as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, those don't primarily, they're not either residents or business owners, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I share the same sentiment. I know we're not going to belabor, but thank you.
Okay, any other, okay, Board Member Scott, go ahead.
So what's the mechanism to make sure we don't see this again? Is it a motion to table in perpetuity, or is it a motion to direct staff not to bring it back to us? What?
There's no action on it. It's a briefing.
Okay, so how do we feel like we've communicated appropriately with staff not to bring this back before us in any time in the near future? I'm just, okay, just make sure. Thanks.
Board Member Scott brings up a good point. I think that what we're saying is, you know, we need to stick to the channels that are there, utilize this entity for what it was designed for, and if you have any issues, you know, directing folks to go through the appropriate channels, being ISAC and TIRZ, then maybe reach out.
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Having no other business, I move to adjourn this meeting, and now it's adjourned.
You can adjourn unilaterally. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Councilmember Pesley has a question.
Yes.
I'm sorry, and I know this is not on the agenda, but I'd like to request that the city manager and staff, and I don't know where we are, Peter, but with respect to, I know before I left the council, we had to dam off the water circulation between Whitecap and Packery Channel and the Lake Padre area.
Right.
And at our next meeting, could you please update us on where we are on all of that?
We can. I'm due an update this week. There was to be some decision last week, but they wanted the Padre Island Homeowner Association wanted a little more time.
Okay.
So I'll get an update this week, and then we'll provide you all an update. We'll do it in writing because it'll be a month from now before we meet again. So
okay.
I'll get you an update, the full board here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.